Hello and welcome to the Artist Mindset Podcast. This is episode 1. I am your host, Chris Goslow, and I am so excited to record this for you. Right here, I am recording. I'm here in Sacramento, California, actually recording in the front of my home. I have never done this before. I don't know how it's going to go. I just know that it's going to go. And at least we're here now doing it. And that is pretty cool. I thought up the idea for the name AMP or Artist Mindset Podcast I think it was either yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday, and here we are recording right now, and I'm so excited that you're here listening and that we're doing this, because this is how new ideas get birthed, I guess. They just fall out of the sky one day. I've actually thought about doing a podcast for a while now, but it just suddenly makes sense, so here we are. A little about me. I just want to say that I am a lifelong artist. I mostly work in the musical realm, making music, and of course that is who I am. That is what I love doing. And also, though, I am also a coach, not only a piano instructor, but I consider myself a music coach. I've worked with kids. I worked in musical theater. I worked in rock and roll. I worked obviously with my piano students, and as a coach and as a teacher, I love talking about ideas that are about inspiration and self-improvement and how to make your life better. And as a lifelong artist, and definitely identify as an artist, I figure that this community of other artistic people is something that is obviously very close to my heart, that I feel that I can speak to. And so here we are, the Artist Mindset Podcast. So I am sitting here speaking into this Tascam recorder. It's the same one I actually use in my teaching studio, and I have no idea how all this is going to go. I just know that I can edit audio and put some sound together. The music that you probably just heard at the beginning of this, since I haven't yet edited it together, is a little track that I just created today. We'll call it the AMP theme music for now. At least for now. I hope you liked it. I just created it a couple hours ago on GarageBand, in case you know what that is. Very common, popular, and easy to use music software on Macs. But I just put that together. Sometimes I like to do that sort of fun, kind of hip-hoppy, dancey vibe. Although I'm not even sure exactly if that's what you call it. I just know that I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. And I figured that what is the harm in putting it right there? I don't know if it's good or not, if it's going to stay or not. But one of the things about being an artist that I've found is you got to be willing to try stuff out. And you kind of don't know in the short run how it's all going to go. But you have to be willing to take that risk and see what may come of it. Which leads me into what this show is about. So, and not only that, but who is this show for? And by the way, bear with me if I trip on my words here. Just trying this out. Don't know the form. All I know is who this show is for. This is for you if you think of yourself as an artist, or even if you don't think of yourself as an artist. If you think about yourself as creative, or even if you don't. However, here are some indications that you may be an artist, and this show may be for you. If you find yourself with a collection of drawings, paintings, stories, poetry, songs, film ideas, theater ideas, or any creative ideas that you just can't seem to get out of your mind. If you find, you may be an artist if you find it hard to be normal. You may be an artist if you are more inspired by what things could be than by what they are. You may be an artist if you believe deeply in your own notion of beauty. You may be an artist if your ideals are everything to you. You may be an artist if you are profoundly moved by life, whether that be other people, or movies, or music, or nature, or something else. You may be an artist if you like listening to this podcast. And you may be an artist even if you don't like listening to this podcast. Let's be real. Anyway, you may be an artist if you like the idea of being an artist. And you may be an artist if you can't picture yourself as anything else. And yes, I just wrote up that list and I figured it'd be a cool little discussion piece. Basically, you may be an artist, even if that word, no matter what you think of that word, it's fine with me and it should be fine with you. If you think of yourself as a creative person, you may be an artist if you love baking. You may be an artist if you love knitting. I'm not too worried about the term, but artistic people are everywhere. And if you're listening to this, you're probably an artistic person in yourself. And I want to say that that is a special thing. And it's something that I think is so just, honestly, it's at the core of who I am. Now, even though I do identify as musician, composer, songwriter, performer, all of that, I do think at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, deep inside, I consider myself a creative person, someone who's creative and wants to express that creativity. And to me, that is the perfect definition of what an artist is. So let me see, going on. What are some of the misconceptions that people have about artists? Number one, before we go further, I want to just give you a lowdown for this episode. I'm just going to be talking a little more, just kind of laying the groundwork here for this podcast. And then later in the show, I'm very pleased that I'm going to be having my good friend Dave Clark on here. We are going to be having a good discussion. It hasn't happened yet, but I anticipate we're going to have a good discussion. And then also we're going to actually play some music. He's a very awesome blues singer and harmonica player or harp player, and we're going to be doing something with that a little later, just so you know. Meanwhile, back to the discussion. So, a little about me, okay? Since I'm talking about you may be an artist, all this stuff. Well, what if you're wondering who I am? Why am I talking about this? Well, I would probably say that the reason I wrote all of those sentences is because they all apply to me. And this podcast may be sort of a general artist mindset podcast, but at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, it starts with me, the creator, as anything does. So it's definitely coming from my point of view as a person who identifies with being an artist. It's a great concept. It's like, oh, I am an artist. But in everyday reality, there's realities we have to take care of, and so let's talk a little about the misconceptions that people have about artists. All right? Misconception number one. This is not in any particular order, and it's not definitive. I just thought of this a few minutes ago when I was writing down notes for this. Number one is that we are broke. Okay? Now, there are many broke artists out there. I'm sure of that, and I know some of them. Okay? But at the same time, there are many broke plumbers, many broke electricians, many broke lawyers, many broke politicians, many broke baseball coaches, many broke teachers, etc., etc., many broke businessmen, many broke venture capitalists, many broke investors and other entrepreneurs. There's many broke people in this world. So why single out artists? Well, I don't really know the answer to that, but there is that misconception. And perhaps one of the reasons that it comes up with respect to artists is that we just don't fit into the box that makes it obvious that there's some clear career path for us. Unless you're talking about like celebrities or something, a lot of people don't even understand how an artist could get by or what they do to make money, etc., etc. We'll come back to that. So that was misconception one. Artists are broke. That's just the misconception. There's plenty of successful artists who make money, even people you've never heard of, and many, including myself, that make money and live off of my art. Now, granted, I do make a lot of my money currently from teaching, but teaching is an expression of creativity, and I personally have found great joy and satisfaction out of it that I honestly did not expect many years ago when I was training in my craft. But anyway, so the idea that you have to be broke or something, it's just not true, okay? Misconception number two is that artists are personally a mess. So we've heard all the stories, Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis Presley at the end of his life, or whatever. Other people, drugs, their personal mess, or just the idea of the broke, starving, unhappy, miserable artist, Edgar Allan Poe, alcoholism, or other sorts of drugs, or pain, or depression, as somehow that's related to being creative. Now, I'm sure that many artists are probably sensitive, and sometimes that can lead them down negative paths such as drugs and alcohol and depression and etc. But I fully do not believe this whatsoever. Personally, my story, although I've had my own struggles in the past, I make no secret of them. I consider myself a very positive person who is constantly working on how I can improve my mindset, make myself happy, make myself a better person, exercising, reading, learning, teaching, growing, have a business coach, listening to podcasts and good recordings and reading things that inspire me. Personally, I do not subscribe to this at all. In fact, I think the artist is uniquely poised to be a happier individual, because the call of authenticity that calls us as artists, we want to be real. We want to be authentic in the world. We don't want to be, we don't want to be a cookie cutter of someone else. We want to be our own people. Personally, that's very satisfying to me, and it's a big part of who I am. So I do not believe that whatsoever. Okay, the third misconception about artists is that we worship the devil. And all I can say is, yes, this happens to be true. Just kidding. Dramatic pause for comic effect or something. I don't know what to say about that. That was, of course, me being kind of silly. I don't know if it's true or not, but I do think that artists, we do kind of tend to think on our own and kind of march to our own drummer, and that could be kind of weird to non-artists. I think it is part of what causes a lot of misconceptions about being an artist, is that we just don't do the same things that everyone else does. And throughout history, there have been many times where people that were different, as you probably know, probably were considered maybe dangerous or a threat or even the product of the devil. I'm sure it's happened many times in history, and I'm sure artists are not the only ones to suffer from that sort of suspicion, but I'm sure that they have suffered from that. All right, enough of that. Number 4, misconception that people have about artists. If you are real artists, you don't quite fit in with the rest of society, and if you fit in, then you're not a real artist. Now, I'm not actually sure if people have this misconception, but I think that I sometimes have. So let me explain that a little bit. If you are a real artist, then you're somehow eccentric. You're somehow different. Now, if you fit in and are too functional in the world, then maybe you're not a real artist. This is probably a variation on the idea of the broke, starving artist as the ideal, or the sort of rebel artist who can't quite fit in is the ideal. And all I can say is this might be something that I've sometimes thought about myself, and maybe it's valuable for you to hear it. But I just want to say that I think that real artists can be whatever they want to be. Real artists can be highly popular. You can be highly functional. You can find your own niche of people that you have a great social life. Real artists can have great love in their life, a great relationship. I do, and so I know it firsthand. Real artists can be great, leaders in their community. They can be functional people that do well in life, just as any other career or profession does. Again, it's not the profession; it's people. It's just a community of people, rich and diverse group of people, just like any other profession. And you can be, fully functional in life and be a real artist. My last misconception that I wrote down, probably not the last misconception about artists, but the last one I wrote is, and I kind of alluded to this a little earlier, unless you make it big as an artist in a very obvious way that everyone understands, like becoming a celebrity, you must not be a real artist or a successful artist. Now, of course, hopefully that feels ridiculous to you, but some of us get kind of confused about this. I have personally been making money as an artist, as a musician for, over 13 years and living off of it pretty much 100% for over 10 years. And I can say that, did I say 13 years? I meant 15 years. I forgot if I said that. 15 years, living off it for 10 years. And all I can say is that the first moment I started getting paid for this, something happens. And you start to gain a sense of your own success. At least that was the way for me. I'm not going to speak for everybody. And, success that comes from within, I think, is the only success that really matters, is your own personal sense of success. To me, getting paid was a big indication that I was headed in the right direction. Also, just simply having people, compliment what I was doing, of course, that happened first. That's always a great sign that you're going somewhere. And so I really think that defining your own success is very important. Now, I'm not saying define your own success and therefore settle for things that suck because you can't get something better. No, I'm not saying that at all, but we're on a journey here. As an artist, as a human being, you are on a journey, and it may not look like what someone else is on, their journey. And you know what? Sometimes you might think it takes longer than it should, or you might compare yourself to someone else, some big celebrity. Of course, I've done this many times. It just usually doesn't work that well to do that. Surprise, surprise. Here's a little secret, okay? Celebrities compare themselves as well. Celebrities are people just like us. And it doesn't matter if you've won 10 Grammys or 5 Oscars or 3 Tonys or just made $1 million in your art or not, you still could be a fall victim to jealousy, comparison, or feelings of unworthiness or not thinking you're good enough. The fact is that people do not stop being people just because they reach what is publicly perceived as a benchmark of success. Now, for all of us, the rest of us, the little guys who may not even be close to that obvious benchmark of fame or money or what have you, it's no different. Just because you could say, well, I haven't got that Tony or that Grammy and I'd like to know what it's like. And of course you want that, and that's good and true, but I'm just telling you, you are going to be much happier if you don't wait to define yourself as a real artist until something weird, something huge like that happens. Personally, my personal definition of being a professional is getting paid for what I do. And that is enough for me to define myself as a professional. Now, being a real artist, to me, is more about impact. If you are impacting people, then I think it's safe to say that you're a real artist. That could be a 6th grader who paints something and their family or school appreciates it. I mean, I don't think there's any need. I don't think there's any reason to make it more complicated than that. Personally, as a piano teacher, I have lots of students who I share my music with. I write music for classes or just share with them what I'm writing. And I love inspiring them and telling them they can do such things themselves. They can start writing music, etc. But also, I can see the impact. Just the other day, one of my students was looking at some sheet music for my new piano album and just talked about how this one piece, she likes to play it over and over, and she was just talking about how she was marveling at something about it and how it goes, and I was just very pleased about that and just excited to hear the impact that it was having. To me, that is what being a real artist is. By the way, that piece that she was talking about is a piece called Sweet at Home, which is on my latest piano album, which I will be talking about a little bit later and showing you that song, that piano piece. So, anyway, those are misconceptions people have about artists. I hope that you find this topic relatable and relevant. I admit that I'm trying to find my first thought as a good topic to talk to you about. I hope it's interesting. Here we are on the first episode, just going for it. Okay, so now I would like to my last little talking point here. I just want to go over, I guess actually not my last little discussion before I show you some of my music, is the personal challenges of being an artist. Okay, now, first of all, I know there are many that I'm not going to even talk about right now because of time and just who I am, and you might be different. You might have your own personal challenges. For me personally, these are the ones that came to mind immediately. So here we go. The personal challenges of being an artist. Number one is not fitting into a box, and the continual dilemma of either people wanting you to fit in a box or you wanting to because of professional reasons or whatever, thinking you should, or even spending time fitting into that box, but then wondering how you fit in, does this fit? And after all, you don't really like boxes anyway, so how does that all work? Let me give you a case in point. Personally, as a artist, I'm a piano teacher, and what do you think of when you think of piano teacher? Maybe you think of classical music, and frankly, a lot of people think of teaching children, sort of like the neighborhood piano teacher teaches the other kids, or something like that, plays classical music. Now, although I do teach classical music and also have worked with children, the fact is do so much more than that. I mean, I'm into rock, I'm into pop, I'm into hip hop. I've written a lot of actual rap songs that I play at the piano. And as an artist, I really do not fit into any one niche per se. Although classical and popular art forms are a big influence, certainly rock, and the song ballads and all kinds of songs. There's certain songs that have influenced my style, of course, and style, but the idea of fitting in a box has always been a bit challenging for me because it's hard to fit in a box when you're a creative person, and I accept that, personally, more and more these days. But I admit that it's still been a personal challenge for me at times. A second part of that is, being a piano teacher and wondering, what kind of creative, don't I have to kind of be, kid friendly, or is it okay for me to talk about hard things in my songs when I'm, trying to teach children? But the point is, I've had my struggles around all that stuff, and how do you make it all fit? I don't know, except I will say that as an artist, it's so important to have faith and just go forward in the direction that calls you. Intuition and inspiration are probably the most important things in our life. And following that and building your life around that one way or the other is so important. I wouldn't be teaching piano if I didn't get, inspiration from it and joy from it. I learned long ago, it's like, wow, I actually really like working with students. I didn't know I would do that. And wow, I really like working with adults. It's really fun, for example. And just that camaraderie, the conversation, the discussion. And so anyway, but I didn't get to that clarity by trying to censor myself or fit into a box. I will say, though, that professionally, it is sort of a box, teaching piano, and it's a market niche that has market. It has people wanting to pay for your services, and that's important. And that's the other thing about fitting into a box. I have personally, at times, I play that role. If I'm hired to go play a show, I'm hired to play for that kind of style or that venue or that, I'm brought in for that reason. If someone comes for me for piano lessons, they also have an expectation. They're hiring me for a certain kind of niche or role that I play. So I do think sometimes that it can be valuable to kind of put yourself in a box that people want to use you for professional benefit. Okay, moving on. Number 2, personal challenges of being an artist. I think that this is probably kind of related, but it can be a challenge for us as artists. I know for me, it has been at times. Finding your niche. What is your niche? Who's your audience? As a piano teacher, it's pretty obvious my audience is, people who want piano lessons, right? That's a niche. It's a pretty established niche. It's been around for centuries. But now when it comes to writing music, performing, selling music, that's a different challenge. And it's one that I admittedly, still working on that one myself. Sometimes you got to create your own niche. Sometimes you want to find a pre-existing niche. Anyway, the third personal challenge I wanted to bring up about being an artist is the fear of criticism and maybe oversensitivity to things. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I have struggled with this a lot as an artist, whether it was putting out a love hip-hop song and getting some nasty comments on YouTube, which happened to me, or getting some nasty comments from an email, which happened to me, or just plain imagining paranoid scenarios of being criticized or whatnot, this fear of criticism has been an issue. The other side of that is perfectionism. Putting out music but taking forever to finish, or overthinking it, or being afraid that it's not technically up to par. I mentioned the GarageBand tune a little earlier. My first piano album I recorded on GarageBand, and when I put that out, and by the way, I've had many people telling me how much they love that album. They listen to it again and again, etc. But I had, for a long time, a lot of fear and oh my God, it's not good enough, and I just did it all myself, and it's on GarageBand, and blah blah blah. This perfectionism, which boils down to a fear of criticism, and that sort of thing plagued me. And I admit I still have some of those struggles, being overly sensitive to things. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just early childhood experiences, but when something doesn't go the way I wanted it to, maybe it's falling out with someone I'm working with or whatever, that has sometimes been a real point of discouragement or confusion. And so the psychology, you got to deal with your own psychology, and that can be a real challenge as an artist. I can certainly attest to that personally. Maybe you can too. I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about that, but I just wanted to brush upon that right this moment. Maybe we'll go into that further in future sessions, because it is a topic that is just ripe for more discussion. Okay, so now for this segment, I'm going to talk to you a little, just a personal plug for my music, and also I'm going to share with you one of my tracks from my most recent album, the Cherry Rainbow Piano Experience. I wrote this over the course of the last several years, or some of the music going all the way back to 2009, but then I recorded 14 tracks last September. I was privileged to work with a very talented flutist named Caleb Hathaway, who is an awesome, classically trained and a brilliant improviser. And we hit it off musically right away. The first moment we met, we were jamming and improvising together. So we got together last September, went to Berkeley. My wife was there. We worked with an engineer in Berkeley, Michael Rosen, and we recorded the whole album that day. And I have never been happier with a recording project or result, and not just because it took only one day, but because it was a thrilling and easy experience. I think I sort of just got out of my own way, perhaps for the first time in a recording project, and the end result was very satisfying for that album. Released at the end of last year, and a lot of people in my circle of influence have already really enjoyed this. Students, friends, fans, family, etc., etc. Very proud of this work, and eager to share it with the world even more so. So what I'm going to do right now is show you one of the tracks. Here is Sweet at Home. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that track. I had no idea if talking to you for half an hour before playing my track was the right idea or not. But hey, I'm learning as I go, and if you enjoyed that, that's what matters to me the most. And secondly, I hope that you enjoyed the rest of the discussion, and I'm very excited because this next part of this segment is going to be involving my friend Dave Clark. So stick around, and when I come back, it'll probably be a couple days from now or something, and I'll be talking to him, and it should be a good conversation, and he is going to play some blues harmonica and sing, and I'm going to be playing along with him. So see you real soon.